Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Subhash Kari, an Executive President and Chief Innovation Officer at Infocepts, overseeing our global practices and delivery organization. Today, I have with me Mr. Denish Bhavsar, Director of Global Data Governance at McCain Foods. Denish, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. What does a mature data governance practice look like in an organization? What are some of the indicators that you consider? Or if I could say, what does data governance nirvana look like?
Yeah, for me, I would say my ideal target state would to have embedded data governance, and that's embedded into the day-to-day of every employee, right? That comes across data in an organization. It doesn't have to be councils and specific roles and responsibilities. I think that's important. We need to have that, but I also want to be able to drive the literacy to all frontline employees and all levels of the organization. That's making sure that we take a few extra seconds to understand what data we're creating, who we're sharing it with, making sure that at the point of entry, the quality is good, right? Typically what happens is, I'm just entering data, it's someone else's problem, I'm sure it'll get fixed downstream. No, data quality really starts at the source. And it's that first point of entry that we want to make sure that we capture that. And so I want to be able to get to a point where everyone across the organization is thinking about data, the importance of good quality data, the importance of making sure that's secured and protected. And once I get to that point, then I know I've got embedded data governance in the organization.
That's awesome. I guess I think similar to you to like you mentioned about marathon, right? I think it's all about continuous improvement. It's about making progress on a day-by-day basis. Maybe embracing more automation, more self-service. And I love the phrase you use, like embedded data governance. Again, one of those nuggets that I'm going to carry with me. What advice would you give to a CEO looking to embrace data-led business transformation? What are some of the biggest obstacles standing in their way to make progress in this area?
Yeah, I think the biggest advice I would give is to be curious, right? Be curious about data. Be curious about what data and data insights can bring to you and your organization. I think it's the curiosity that will really transform the organization when it comes to our data transformation program and what that data strategy looks like. Typically, when we get into the space of AI and data and so forth, it can become very overwhelming, right? And you hear so many things are happening in the space, whether it be data mesh, data fabric, what have you. You can get very lost very easily. So I would say, first be curious, and then really be just focused on where you want to make that incremental improvement. What are some of those processes where you feel that the data can help you and make that improvement, and then hone in on that process, and really figure out what those use cases are, figure out where we can make the improvements, and then use that to propel to the next phase. Like I said, it's a marathon, right? So it's not a sprint, and it's literally one use case at a time, one business impact, business owner at a time they need to address.
Yeah. So culture of curiosity, I love that advice, Denish. So closing in, Denish, these days, I think the younger generation, right? The Gen Zs as they call, most of them basically are trying to get into the data and AI space.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question to you is what advice would you give to a data analytics professionals about developing skills useful for the data journey?
Yeah, I would say, you have to stay current. You have to know exactly where the space is headed, whether that's very technical in nature, data science space, whether you want to be in SQL, Python, all the various coding applications and languages. I think you have to figure out where you want to play. And there's really great career opportunities when it comes to data engineering, data architecture, or data science. I think, explore that, understand what each one of those means and what that looks like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Data science didn't exist that long ago, and look at the steam and traction is picked up. So I'd say, focus on that and really focus on what interests you about data and data analytics, because I think it's a great place to be in because you get all aspects of it. You get to work very closely with the business areas. You get to work very closely with your technical skill sets that you want to build, and you get to learn a lot about different aspects of your organization that you wouldn't otherwise. And so I think it's a really good opportunity for people to embrace data, being able to leverage that for their career as well. But I think it's a really good place to be in.
Yeah. So, so Denish, I think great responses. I personally, I think even though I've been a practitioner in this field for a number of years, I can learned a lot from your experience. Any closing thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think what I would say is I've had a rewarding experience being in business transformation and strategy, but I feel like the last few years being in data and everything that comes with it, everything from the risk side of things to regulatory requirements to analytics to the various debates that I had with my colleagues and peers in the industry as well as in my organization here, it's been very rewarding, and I think it's only going to expand as we get more into AI space and machine learning, etc. I think the opportunity is quite endless, but that also means that the responsibility is just that much more valuable and strong. So I think for me, it's been a great experience, and I would encourage anyone to get into the data space as well.
So Denish, great conversation. I think if I can just summarize what I am taking away from this conversation. First, I loved your advice to the CEO about being curious about what data can actually do for your business. Second, I admired how you framed the data is not a technology problem. It is a business need. It's a business problem, right? So we have to look at it from that lens. I love basically how you mentioned don't throw technology or basically buzzwords at the data governance topic, right? Start basically with use cases, see I think how you can reduce risk for your organization, and then ultimately what you mentioned, the nirvana is the concept of embedded data governance, right, where this becomes part of day-to-day operations, like a way of life. So thank you, I think, for sharing your thoughts, and I hope that our listeners would enjoy listening to this as well as taking away and applying that in their business. Thank you, Denish.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.